when I was doing my end of year review, I remember thinking of how January was nuts. And I remember in the review I said, January last year was nuts. It was crazy, wasn't it? I mean, if you think about the stories in January, we had the whole blow up of the Integrity Initiative I covered, and finding out that they were heavily involved in the narrative surrounding the Skripal poisonings, and it was scripted in advance. And then we found out that the first person on the scene wasn't the copper that we were told. Nick Bailey, I think his name was. It wasn't him after all. It was the army nurse. No, that's not a typo. Not the army nurse. It was not an army nurse. It was the army nurse who got an OBE for the Queen and was trained in treating deadly diseases. Then we got the whole Venezuela thing. That all blew up last January with Guaido, etc. So it was an incredible way to start the year. At least so I thought. Because so far we're not even a week into 2020. And already Australia is on fire. And pretty soon the rest of the world might be too. Why? Well, because Donald Trump, President of the United States, still can't quite grasp that. Well, he gave an order to assassinate Iran's top general. Soleimani, I think his name was, although nobody had heard of him up until 4 days ago. Everybody's an expert on him now in the media, apparently. The reason we were given that they assassinated this general was to de-escalate tensions. Okay. Well, let me just cut in, because this is a de-escalation, is it? No, we'll see. This is breaking news right now. The US-led coalition tells Iraqi military that it will withdraw from Iraq out of respect for the nation's sovereignty. Yes, the parliament have voted to kick America out. Originally, Trump said, no, we're not leaving. Pompeo said, we're not leaving. Trump said, yeah, we want paid for our airfield first. But it looks like, well, they're saying they're repositioning. I'm assuming they won't be going home. They'll be just repositioning to other countries surrounding Iran. As I said at the time, I'm considering de-escalating tensions with Russia by assassinating one of their most loved generals. Good idea? Sounds great, doesn't it? Sounds like a perfect idea. Of course it wasn't. We got the news yesterday that the UK have sent 2 ships to the Strait of Hormuz. They're saying to resume accompaniments of UK-flagged commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. If you think that's all they've gone for, want to buy a bridge? Of course, this is escalating tensions. It's not de-escalating them at all. I honestly wonder about our country. I do. Because let's remember, America elected Donald Trump as president. Grab them by the pussy. You know, why can't we take out their families? And then they're acting nuts now because he's planning to bomb cultural sites, apparently. This is who the man is. And more worryingly, the United Kingdom are just following him in to what could lead to a massive scale war. If Kanye West gets to be president next, would the UK send our tanks to Texas if he declared war on Taylor Swift? I'm betting we would. Without question. The Iranians, of course, they are not happy about their top general being assassinated, and you will find out exactly why. By the way, it's worse than just assassinating one of their generals. You'll find out in this stream it's worse. Far worse. And they're not talking about this in the media. In our old media, as I'm going to be calling them this year. They're not talking about it in our old media at the moment. Afshin Ratanzi says, for the first time, the red flag signifying global war is raised over the Jam Koran Mosque in the holy city of Qom in Iran, where Muqtada al-Sadr studied before his return to Iraq. The Iranians are obviously going to strike back. And I've heard lots of people saying that this is a huge mistake by Donald Trump. This is not a huge mistake. You might think of it and look at it and say, oh, he's made a huge mistake here. And maybe he has. But this was always planned. They were always going to war with Iran. Look at my videos of the last 2 years. I've been documenting how they are circling it. One of the first videos I did was to look back at the history of Iran and America, because I knew there was going to be bullshit flying in the coming months and years, and I wanted to get my facts straight first. This is not unplanned. The timing may be earlier than they wanted, or later, or depending if you've seen the Wesley Clark 7 Countries video, no doubt. But this has been in the works and been planned for a long, long time. And where we were heading in the UK and the US has always been a path towards war with Iran for the last 20 years, because we have given all of our power and all of the power in this country to a bunch of sociopathic fucking psychopaths. Remember weapons of mass destruction? Do you remember the lies we were told about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? There were the media beating the drums for war. 45-minute warnings we had. Oh, we could be hit by the UK. We would get 45 minutes of a chemical attack by Assad. Do you remember that? I fucking do. The Chilcot report made it quite clear that this was a bad thing, and our media must stop it in the future. They must refrain from doing this in the future. Look at this. 6 ways Britain is a soft target for Iranian attacks. That's the Telegraph. Here's the Sun, or the Scum as I call it. Easy targets. Iran threatens to kill British soldiers as ex-Navy chief says UK is softer target than US for revenge attacks. Iran threat. Britain a soft target for Soleimani revenge attacks. Dire warning. Can you see what they're doing? Can you see it now? Here's some more. Breitbart. Lovely outlet. Breitbart. Admiral fears UK a soft target as Iran warns Brits will be collateral damage in the war with the US. Here's the Daily Mail, and look at this pile of shit. Look at all the fucking advertisements on it. Look at it. It's literally just adverts and pictures. No doubt the people who pick up the Mail online need a little help with their reading. Britons in Egypt could be targets for terrorists, says the Foreign Office. They just regurgitate it. Regurgitate the propaganda. Regurgitate whatever will beat the drums of war. It's sickening. And they are doing it again, and they will do it again and again and again and again. Here's the Sun. Again, stay alert. Western tourists in Egypt warn they are an easy target for terror attacks after Iran general's execution. What was the Iran general's execution? Scum. Because if you were on the other end of that, that would sound like a fucking terrorist attack to me. They are doing it again, the media are. Again and again and again. They don't stop. Express World War III threat. Terrifying target. Details of Iran's imminent military retaliation exposed. Just repeating whatever the defence of this country, whatever the intelligence community, whatever lies that they're told, they just repeat it and splash it on the pages of their piece of shit. Here's what they have actually said. Here's Hezbollah. They're saying we can differentiate between American civilians, etc. You understand what I'm talking about here. They are saying we're not going to go after civilians. We're not. We're not going to go after civilian targets. This is what they're saying at the other end. This is what Hezbollah are saying. This is what Iran are doing. Obviously, most people say Hezbollah are backed by Iran, etc. But no, we're not going. We differentiate between people and nations. When they shout in Iran at the end of their prayers, when they don't shout death to Americans, they don't shout death to Israelis. They shout death to America and death to Israel. They differentiate between the psychopaths running the country and the ordinary people who haven't got a clue what their country is doing in their name. That's the truth of it. He's an actual, real, quality journalistic outlet. Let's see what they say. This is from Max Blumenthal in the Grey Zone. Iraqi PM Iraqi PM reveals Soleimani was on a peace mission when assassinated, exploding Trump's lie of imminent attacks. This is the reason that they said that they, well, let's face it, killed him, assassinated him, that he was going to be masterminding imminent attacks against Americans. Pompeo eventually, oh no, it wasn't Americans at home, it was like over there in the Middle East where they shouldn't be, where the service members shouldn't be. The Trump administration claimed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani was planning imminent attacks on US interests when it assassinated him. That lie was just destroyed, but not before countless corporate media outlets transmitted it to the public. Of course, all of the outlets I just showed you, they would have all gone along with it. Imminent attacks, imminent attacks, imminent attacks. Desperate to justify the US drone assassination of Iranian Major General Qasem Soleimani, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo insisted that Washington had made an intelligence-based assessment that Soleimani was actively planning in the region to attack American interests before he was killed. That's what we were told. That's what our Mockingbird media all ran with. President Donald Trump justified his fateful decision to kill the Iranian general in more explicit language, declaring that Soleimani was planning, quote, imminent attacks on US diplomatic facilities and personnel across the Middle East. We took action last night to stop a war, Trump claimed. We did not take action to start a war. Of course, that's how you de-escalate things, by killing your opponent's major general. Trump's dubious rationale for an indisputably criminal assassination has been repeated widely across corporate media networks and often without skepticism or debate. At a January 3rd State Department briefing, where reporters finally got the chance to demand evidence for the claim of imminent threat, one US official erupted in anger. Jesus, do we have to explain why we do these things? They don't want to answer to anybody. They want to go around the world killing people and assassinating people and stealing countries' oil with impunity. They don't want to answer to people. They're better than you. They know better. 2 days later, when Iraqi Prime Minister Abdul Mahdi, I apologise if I get any of these Persian names wrong, I'm very sorry, Westerner, addressed his country's parliament, Trump's justification for killing Soleimani was exposed as a cynical lie. According to Abdullah Mahdi, he had planned to meet Soleimani on the morning the general was killed to discuss a diplomatic rapprochement that Iraq was brokering between Iran and Saudi Arabia. That's weird, isn't it? They want to de-escalate a war, but it looks to me like Iran and Saudi Arabia were brokering some sort of, peace deal of some sort. Plot thickens. Abdul Mahdi said that Trump personally thanked him for the efforts, even as he was planning to hit on Soleimani, thus creating the impression that the Iranian general was safe to travel to Baghdad. Do you remember when they told Saddam Hussein, we don't care. We don't care if you invade. Soleimani had arrived in Baghdad not to plan attacks on American targets, but to coordinate de-escalation with Saudi Arabia. Indeed, he was killed while on an actual peace mission that could have created political distance between the Gulf monarchy and members of the US-led anti-Iran axis like Israel. The catastrophic results of Soleimani's killing recall the Obama administration's 2016 assassination of Mullah Akhtar Mohammed Mansour, a Taliban leader who was eager to negotiate a peaceful end to the US occupation of Afghanistan. Mansour's death wound up empowering hardline figures in the Taliban who favoured a total military victory over the US and triggered an uptick in violence across the country, dooming hopes for a negotiated exit. Whenever there's an outbreak of peace, the United States seem to want to throw a bomb at it. Literally bombing for peace. War is peace, everybody. Freedom is slavery. Oh dear. Trump, for his part, tweeted a litany of gangster-like threats, promising to destroy Iranian cultural sites if it retaliated and pledging to sanction Iraq like they've never seen before if it ousted US troops. There's been a lot of this by Trump, swinging his dick around on Twitter, as George Carlin would say. God rest his soul. Trump's treacherous assassination has brought the US closer to war than ever before against a country more military potent than any adversary it had faced since the Korean War. And as with the failed US invasion of Iraq, Washington's casus belli for, I don't know even how to pronounce that actually, Max, you're a smarter man than me, for triggering this conflict was based on falsified intelligence sold to Americans by administration officials and on a pliant Beltway media acting as their megaphone. Just shown over here in the UK. You can imagine what it's like in America. Excuse me. With its claim of, quote, imminent attacks, this article continued, the Trump administration has essentially remixed Condoleezza Rice's 2003 warning that we don't want the smoking gun to be a mushroom cloud. Back then, the United States attacked a sovereign state to rid it of WMDs that did not exist. This time, it killed the second most important Iranian official to prevent a killing spree that was not on the way. And Trump administration officials knew they were lying. In fact, Pompeo pitched assassinating Soleimani to Trump several months ago, well before any attacks were imminent. And in wake of the general's killing, a US official revealed to the New York Times that the NSA had intercepted communications the United States had between Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and General Soleimani, showing that the Ayatollah had not yet approved any plans by the general for an attack. But the preponderance of evidence exposing Trump's basis for killing Soleimani as a titanic lie and not generated the same level of media interest as the lie itself. On January 3rd, CNN assigned 3 reporters to disseminate the Trump administration's disinformation about Soleimani, claiming without a hint of critical detachment that he was, quote, planning specific attacks on US interests, including US personnel. After the story went live, CNN's lead reporter Jim Sciutto reached out to another official US source to confirm his now discredited piece of war propaganda. In Sciutto's mind, if more than one US official says a thing, it must be true. This is why I think that these things are written by 3 or 4 different people in these newspapers. They have to all try and get a leak, from the intelligence service to each one of them, and then each one of them get a leak from assumed different sources. Then they've got the story. We did our due diligence. No, you didn't. You were duped into writing propaganda. You absolute horrors. Sciutto is not any run-of-the-mill national security reporter, Max continues. During the Obama era, he accepted a job as a chief of staff at the US Embassy in Beijing, placing himself at the centre of Washington's gathering Cold War with China. Now back behind CNN's anchor desk, Sciutto poses a ferocious critic of Trump while providing the Pentagon and State Department with reliable stenographic services. No president in recent history has been despised more viscerally by the Beltway press corps than Trump. Nearly everything he says is met with disdain and suspicion, even when he is telling the truth. But when Trump and his administration attempt to lie the public into war against a designated evildoer, a swath of corporate media responds with reflexive trust, then shrugs when the lie is exposed in broad daylight. Great article, Max Blumenthal. Great, great article. And as he alluded to at the end there, the same people, likewise over here in the UK, the same people in our old media, as I am calling them this year, the old media, because they are, who are currently beating the drums for war with articles sourced from, quote, intelligence leaks. These are the same outlets who cheered on the weapons of mass destruction lie and the disastrous wars in the Middle East that came from it. These are the same outlets, by the way, that until very, very recently was saying that Jeremy Corbyn was the danger to national security. Huh? He's the son. Jeremy Corbyn is a danger to national security and unfit to become Prime Minister, warns former MI6 chief. He's the Evening Standard. Jeremy Corbyn is a danger to national security, former MI6 chief claims. Look at it. He's the Telegraph. Former MI6 chief claims Corbyn is a danger to national security. Jeremy Corbyn and national security. Corbyn a security risk. Hague lists 5 reasons why Labour leader can't be trusted. They won't stop. We have opened Pandora's box. Say we, the Americans, have opened Pandora's box. Iran are going to hit back, of that you can be sure. There will be massive blowback from this. They're having 3 days of mourning, and then I'm assuming all hell will break loose. It won't be missiles. It'll be cyber attacks. It'll be missiles. It won't be on, I think, military facilities. It'll be on oil facilities. You saw what's happened over the last year. There will be blowback from this. This is a crime, and it is a crime that is not going to go unpunished. They said that. It's a crime that must be avenged. And we have no idea what is going to happen next, or how the US will respond, and how Trump will respond. Like I say, Trump has been waving his dick around on Twitter for almost 3 days now with threats of annihilation of one kind or another if Iran respond to this crime. We shall see what he does when Iran responds. Whatever it is that happens, whatever Trump and the neocons do, you can bet this. Put money on it right now. Boris Johnson and the rest of America's little bitches down there in the UK establishment will be right up his orange arsehole while he does it. Even if that means it brings more terrorism to our shores. Yet Corbyn was the security threat. In fact, I say that, end on this, because I say he could have brought terrorism to our shores. After reading this article by Max Blumenthal, this excellent article, I've got a horrible feeling that bringing terrorism to our shores is the intention, because they certainly don't want peace, do they?